Like, obviously, if we talk about Karmine Corp, they actually had one of the hardest strengths of the schedules. Like, they had pretty good teams out the gate. So let's talk about Karmine then. What did you think of this one? Because I think the problem here is this, Jensen. I would just set it up this way. On this particular episode, I actually think me and you are more about just talk about the game for this one rather than sort of the meta drama around it. There's more maybe so many insight topics. But I actually think the Carmine Corp one specifically, because of Yamato, because of the French-Spanish thing, I actually think that one has been clouded by the whole thing of like people laughing at the fact that they've lost all the games and then banter. Obviously, if you banter, you're not going to go, you were in 3 close games, but you blew them. Like, you're going to go, you're trash, you just lost all the games. That's just how people banter, you know. So I feel like people actually, like, there's the thing. The Vitality one, if people don't know Mac, might be alarming. The Carmine Corp one, I'm not that alarmed by, actually, mate. Like, when I watch these games, I thought, like, you know, this is like at least they're in the games. At least we're seeing something for these players. Like, and these are hard games. So where are you at on this one? Like, if we take out the silly social media swarm, let's just look at the games. How did Carmine Corp do this week, do you think?
Hey, they have the best player, right? They have the best player in the league. Bo, right? Bo is just the best player in the LEC. But I don't know what's up with the way that he just ends up playing with his team again. And this was a team that was a little bit more not too sure when it comes to looking at the roster, even when we're just looking at the theory crafting aspect of things. But then this is where I think where Yamato gets his sword cut off for him, right? As a coach and his ability to really rally people together. Because I think that this is a team that really needs a very charismatic figure like Yamato. And probably after this weekend, the same approach that Mac has would not work for these guys, right? Bo is probably somebody from China. He already had one bad year here in the LEC. He's definitely feeling the pressure. And then we've all seen what happens when he starts to feel the pressure, right? He might withdraw, he might just end up compensating and playing over aggressively, which is, I think, something that can happen as a young import talent. This happened quite a fair bit in NA, in the LCS, where you bring over these import players and then they start to feel that, oh, okay, my teammates are messing up, so I need to start taking on these unnecessary risks and trying to carry the game myself. And that's the scenario that you want to avoid, right? Because if you end up with that, and that's the hate space you end up going into, that's the trust between teammates starts to break down, then you just end up in a negative snowball, and your season can go bad really, really fast from there. But I'd imagine Yamato Ken is the type of coach that probably after the games, he's probably gonna go sit behind Saka, and it's like he's gonna hold his hand and show him that this is how you play a Zir. Go up to Takama's, call him a silly nickname or something like Takamabushka or something, and it says gives him his wise words of Yamato Canon advice. Don't let the arrow fly to your opponent. Let
Okay.
the arrows come to you instead.
Okay.
Something along those lines, right? Goes up the cobble shot and then rallies him with an inspiring speech, and then maybe that's what can get this type of team back on track. I did notice that Stake, who was a very big proposed signing for this team in terms of being an assistant coach. Now, this is why, thankfully, he's not a head coach, right? Because if he was the head coach, he'd probably look at some of these players and
Sure.
the way they played on this team.
I mean, the
So straight
perception
away
is
made a
he's
call.
just there to be the ball whisperer, right? That's what people think.
Yeah. Maybe that's the case, right? I didn't see him on
Right. No,
camera,
no, sure.
so maybe he's not there just yet. But that's not having him be around could be one of the factors
Right.
as well as to why they might not be firing on all cylinders yet, right? But Sakin's gameplay, I think, as somebody who has played that much Azir, this is something that I think is definitely very concerning. If you've played that many games of Azir and you don't really understand how Azir is supposed to function in terms of as a zone control mage, in terms of poking up people when they're approaching the Drake fight, you watch the way that someone like a Scout or Fofo plays this year, right? And you compare it to the way that Sakan plays this year. It's just it feels like this guy has completely the wrong idea when it comes to playing this champion. It could be nerves, it could be Bo having a very loud voice and then him getting sucked into the pace of that, or say and sorry, but the thing on Sakan, I think that it feels like this is someone who is either a very bad player or massively underperformed because of whatever reasons out there. Communication across his team seems to be an issue as well with Targmas and Bo, and I just say everybody at this point of time. And Shot has not been playing well in the first week. I would not say that I'm fully off of this team yet because I think that they have the pieces to turn it around. Let's take a rise with what Yamato has shown that he's able to do. This is exactly the type of problems that I think is within Yamato's skill set, but it is a very long laundry list. So I am a lot more concerned for KC than I am for Vitality.
Yeah, the funny thing is, even though obviously, look, in many, many years ago, Yamato actually did coach Vitality, just obviously not the one last year. The reason why I actually thought he was the obvious person I would have brought in as my fixer, like I was talking about with you, I would have brought him to Vitality last year as the fixer for summer because, like, as we're talking about, his whole skill set is essentially like connecting with players, both either like finding out a way basically to like boost performance, like what do we have to do? Or I would say the other thing is, if you just look at some of like the Fnatic teams he had, he looks like he's amazing at selling the Band-Aid, mate, when it goes badly. Like, he really did convince that whole team to just play like that Lucian Nami through upset style. Like, when that was what they needed in Fnatic, they all got on board, and I tell you what, they not only went to Worlds, they were like looking at they were going to be the LEC final from being like, they looked really bad if people forget. They almost didn't make the playoffs. So, yeah, I think actually, again, it's a good example of how essentially what we're doubling down on with Vitality and KC, first and foremost, is the coaching stuff. Like, if they actually get time to work their magic, let them cook, as you Zoomers say, then I actually think, again, yeah, it's the right bunch. This is why I thought, actually, these pairings were good. Because similarly, I thought to myself, if you look at this team, the first thing you think is, there are some enormous egos in this team. Like, I'll give you the three right off the bat, guys. So Upset is, if people don't know, people try to make him sound like he's like the German Uzi Eye. He is, but in the good way. As in, like, he is really skilled, a really good dominant laner. And yes, he wants to be played through. But here's the difference. I've known people who've coached and played with, like, Forgiven, Reckless, some of the more, like, Diva, more difficult players, right? They say, look, compared to them, like, Upset's just fine, mate. There's no issue with all. It's more just compared to an average player, he'll be more sort of like, he might be more vocal about wanting to group around himself, or maybe in this game we could have given me this matchup and I could have won. By the way, that's actually what I want my star player to do. Essentially just communicate what he needs to carry the game and do his job. And by the way, I can tell you, a lot of the stories of like, it has to be him who carries, that's from either his bad teams that collapsed or like when he was on like Schalke with like, oh, do I'm their weak siding guys. Like when he's in a team that has really good players, absolutely he'll let them carry. So I actually think on this one, yeah, I think if you look at it, this is the guy who can get this team back together, because I also think the difference is Vitality looked quite bad from the draft to some of the games, to some of the moments in the games. I actually look at these Karmine games. I could take all of you to a moment in all three games and pause it, and either it's even in the mid game or they're ahead or they have a gold lead. Like this actually, if I'm doing VOD review as a coach, look, I've got plenty of notes to give to my team of how we played out the lanes and how we did the team fights. But I'll tell you what, that's it. I've got a lot of like early like positive remarks too. Like this, I mean, look, I think what's going to put people off is Born Upset came from Vitality, and Vitality used to do this as well. Remember, they also in that shitty summon season did actually have a lot of games that they were in, and then they just blew like late gear. But the difference is they didn't have Yamato Cannon. They just had whatever current structure they had, the Carter and someone else behind them then. And I don't know those people. I can't vouch for their methods. So I think actually people have gotten drawn into the WWE drama aspect of like, you know, France sucks, which is all well and good. Enjoy the league that way if you want. But I think if you're watching the players and the actual talent, this is another team that line up. I won't say like the Vitality one, the whole lineup is too good to fail, but I think some components of it are. Like, quite frankly, from what I saw in this first week, the Board Upset signings is completely fine. They do look like they will be the star players. I even think that's why this is actually a very fixable team stylistically, Jensen. Because one of the problems I saw was it did look like basically, Bo was mega aggressive, and then sometimes his teammates did just, as we say, sell him out. They just didn't go in, or they just let him look stupid, or they just backed off. Now, the reason that kills me is, if you're fucking Upset, you should love Bo, mate. He's the guy who's going to be annoying their fucking backline while you just get a million loads of points of damage off. So that team fight structure is just obvious right there. My main problem, actually, is the people who remain from Karmine Corp. So I'll just very briefly go over them. One, I myself hyped Cabashard because I've thought he was a great player when he was in the LEC. I actually thought he was kind of slept on a bit. And when I saw him in the RLs, he looked pretty good, mate. He looked like a player who could play carry tops. He was a hybrid top player. He could do whatever he wanted. So I have to say his first week was absolutely shocking to me. I actually did think he played really poorly. And I just don't even understand. Look, I'm not somebody who usually complains about specific drafts, but I just don't understand why they drafted him that Malphite game. It just seemed like a bit of a weird one to me. It feels like there's so many options. And then Sakin, I agree. The problem is, if people don't know, he's not a rookie. He used to be in LEC a long time ago, but he played a long time in the RLs with Karmine Corp. In the RLs, he always looked good. And by the way, Azay is his main champion. So I'm sorry, I have to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one, Jensen. I don't believe someone who's played a bazillion games like him really thinks that's how you pilot Azay. That looked to me like nerves. Like he looked hesitant. He looked like he was a bit worried, like the pressure was getting to him. So week one, I'll see on week two for that one. And then for the Targamas one, I just don't understand what that Ash pick was about. He he was quite poor on it. Aside from that, I've actually heard behind the scenes that he did get his game together, and people they are behind the scenes. No one's out on him like the fans are from XL. They all think he's going to have like a bounce back here. So again, I'm not out. It's completely on Karmine Corp. Can you give me some thoughts on some of the players or the style? What's the issue for you?
Um, I think the big one to address is probably Targamas because probably most people remember him as from his time on XL, right? He showed up, and I'm not too sure. If what happened on Excel behind the scenes is very well known
Oh no.
because I've only heard it like secondhand, right? So apparently that there was very huge dressing room issues and Targamas was quite a big part of that. I don't think I should exactly go in. I I don't know, right? But that is definitely a cause of concern, and
The point
especially if
is,
your
there's
team
another
continuously
factor that could
retreat.
affect like in-game performance, right? Not just like being
Yep.
bad at the game, is what you're trying to get to, right?
Yeah, and if you go off the 0-3 start, I'm not sure if this is something that that is a chronic issue, right? Maybe it's one time, it's one place in an environment, and things don't go well, and then things snowball from there. And then here, Targamas is here again on a team that's not starting off well in the LEC, and if it's going to be a repeat incident of what happened last year, so that's probably my biggest concern with regards to that. But that's more the out of game things. I do not think Sakan is a good pairing for Bo, right? If I'm playing with Bo, I want the Niskis, I want the Doinbs, I want the Maples of the world. People who are willing to go out there and they're just gonna pick Nico every game. They're gonna pick some tank mid, they're gonna pick Nautilus, they're gonna pick Nico, they're gonna pick Galio and Twisted Fate and stuff like that, right? These are the type of players that you want to be pairing with Bo. I get that this is Karmine Corp, they're coming in from the ERLs. They were the EU Masters champion and then they wanted to come in with the whole French representation thing. So they had Saka, their couple shard, and they tried to keep as much off the roster as possible, and they tried to upgrade it by bringing in Bow and Upset. But I do not think that these were the right pieces to exactly upgrade the team, and I do not think that this particularly synergizes well, right?
By the
So
way, before you go to the other players, one thing I will say is funny is that is one of the weirdest angles. When you say it like that, it seems so obvious, Jensen. The weirdest thing is obviously what made us all initially hyped about Bo was the FPX run, but we're all ignoring he was playing with fucking Doinby, who is known as one of the most influential mid laners ever over the jungler. But we've all actually like removed that component. Whereas, as you say, if someone's played with Niski, like the joke is when we get to Isma, he doesn't even get any credit yet because everyone just goes, must just be Niski. But the angle here is we're all taking Bo away from Doinby and then acting like there wasn't some like jungler effect from Doinby, which by the way, if people don't know, even beyond Niski, Doinby is easily the most famous for playing with the jungler. As he even played with loads that you guys don't even remember, like Flawless, Clade, every jungler pretty much just their job is just have hands and do what Doinby says. So like that is a mad angle because if you think about it, all we did is take him and then put him with people like Perks is a pretty different player to fucking Doinby if you don't know guys. Like not really too similar at all. So yeah, it's kind of strange, right? We just ignored that angle completely. It's obviously a big influence, I imagine.
yeah, I mean, definitely. So that's one of the things that when K-Corp signed this guy, I'm not too sure if this is something that they knew. But
Right.
like I said, right tools for the right job. Is this a Yamato Cannon job? If you're bringing like somebody more technical, one of the guys who works in the nitty-gritty of the game and it tries to help players like squeeze out the extra 15% in the game, that's the wrong guy for the job. Is this a Yamato Cannon job? This is a Yamato Cannon job, right?
Right. Yeah, sure. What about, do you think they have a flaw with how they play stylistically? Do you think they, I mean, the other thing to say as well is when you have got a team like this where, like, it's not like even though there's three remaining players, like those players are top, mid, and support. Okay, yeah, mid and support play together, but like you are still fixing a whole team together. You're making the jungle fit in, and then how does the ADC fit? Like, what did you think of did they feel uncoordinated to you? Or was it a macro issue? What do you think stopped them being able to win any games?
So I had written down in my notes when I was just watching through the games that Sakan was a very, very big issue, right? They were in winning positions that was blown, I think, in 2 out of the 3 games single-handedly by Sakan, and then one of the games was Copper Shot, right? With the Muffet ulti on mid lane. And they were just repeatedly throw this one position. So they were getting into these good positions. They have the ability to get into these good positions, but this is what we call fatal flaws in the game, right? It's something that um that I'm trying to think of past examples in the LEC. I think the old XL team, right, when Nelson was still coaching them, that's the one I recall, where they would have this one critical fatal flaw where they would always overpush at the mid lane wave, where it was working for them at first, and then once people started to catch on to that, they would just over engage, find that 5 people would be there or people would TP in, and then they would always lose the fight on that when they were already in the winning position.
He means
So
the Nuke Duck Marcoon one, for if people are remembering. You're not talking about the
yeah,
Vethior one. Yeah, just in case people are
yeah.
lost. Yeah, keep going.
So that was what I remember I was watching. And this is a team that
Sure.
has got a fatal flaw. And when the team has a fatal flaw, you're always just going to be there and you can never trust them, right? Because you know that there's this one part of the game that they understand that deep inside you, you feel, or I would even say you know that it's wrong. And that when this scenario pops up, which I would say is a rather common scenario in the game, in this case is handling team fights around Drake when you outrage the opponent. Right, everybody, most of the teams can just close it out simply. You watch the way the
Yes.
LPL teams play. They control the line push. They kite you out. They clear the wave. They chunk you out before you come in, and it's like, oh, yep, we're all chunked to about 60%. We can't contest this anymore. They're not controlling the line push. They're not controlling these areas accordingly, and as a result of that, I'm a bit that's where my concern comes from, right? Where until they have shown and proven to me that they understand and they have fixed these things and they do not conceptualize the game in a different way, I I don't trust them yet to say that this is a team that definitely can turn around.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.